Hello, my name is Ysis Lorenna. Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to share with you my experience in getting a UK driving license. I finally passed my driving test after 9 years of living in the UK without being able to drive. I can't believe it took me that long to pluck up the courage to book my test and do my lessons and pass my test. So I'm going to talk to you about the whole process from beginning to end, from booking my theory test and booking my lessons, finding an instructor, and then finally passing my driving test with a little fail in between, which I'll talk to you about later. But yeah, I thought this video might be interesting if you are thinking about learning to drive, if you're in your 30s like me and you'll need that extra motivation, then hopefully this video will be helpful and a little bit of a push and incentive for you to do it, because if I can do it, you can do it. Before I get into the video, I'd like to ask you to please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy it. Don't forget to share it with your friends if they're learning to drive and you think this video will be interesting for them, and subscribe to my channel if you're new. I post 3 times a week on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays. So now let's get straight into the video. So a little bit of background information. I'm from Brazil. I used to drive over there. I had a car, I had a driving license. Then I moved to the UK, and after living here for a year, the government requires that you do a driving test again. It's not for every country, but it is like that for Brazil. So I had to do my test again and I was dreading doing it. I've done a whole video about learning to drive again and how I felt about it, especially doing it in my 30s and considering I have 2 children, and it gets very difficult and complicated to find time to do it. So I'll leave that video linked below. So it all started for me in 2016 when I was 6 months pregnant or 7 months pregnant with my second child. And I finally decided, you know, enough is enough. I need to be driving for my children. I need to have that ability to drive if I need to take them anywhere. I didn't know where to start. So I went onto the AA website and I looked for qualified driving instructors in my area. That's what I would recommend doing if you don't know where to start, because it's a good, trustworthy business to look at. You know that the drivers there will be, you know, fully vetted. So I did that. I found an instructor in my area. He was brilliant. At that point, I hadn't booked theory test. I hadn't done anything. I'd only bought like apps to study for my theory test. Bearing in mind this is 2016 and we're now in 2019. I met up with this instructor, had a few lessons with him, really got on well with him, and then I decided to start studying for my theory test, because he said basically pointless having all these lessons if you don't even know when you're going to want to take your practical test, so you're just wasting money. I booked my theory test. I studied quite a bit, I'd say, for my first theory test. I just, you know, like on and off here and there. And then I completely stopped and forgot about my theory test until the actual day of my theory test. And I remembered, oh my goodness, I have my theory test today. I had maybe 2 or 3 hours before I was due to take the test. And I just got the app that I had. I think it was I'll put a name here of the app that I had first, that I studied. And I went through as many of the practical questions as I could and just tried to do like the hazard perception, all of these things really quickly in 2 hours. I wasn't going to do it, but I just thought, well, I'm just going to waste money. So I went to do it, sat down, did the best I could, left, certain I was going to fail, and I passed it. I was shocked, really shocked, because I hadn't really studied that hard, but maybe I thought, the fact that I already had a driving license in Brazil and had done a theory test there, maybe some of that had prepared me for the test here. And then it was real that I had passed my theory test. Now it was time to book my practical test and to book some more lessons. So I booked a few more lessons with my instructor, and then things just died down because doing the test became really real for me and I was really scared of doing it. So I didn't book any lessons for a long time. That is like end of 2016, and then I had the baby and everything stopped, obviously, because I just had a newborn baby and a toddler. I had 2 under 2 at the time, and I had no time to even breathe, let alone to do driving lessons. So I put that completely on hold. And in the back of my mind, I remember seeing on my theory test certificate that it was valid for 2 years. So I had to take my practical test within 2 years of my theory test certificate, which was December 2016. So I had to do it by December 2018. At that point in 2017, I was like, I've got plenty of time, not worried about that at all. Anyway, it did nothing. In 2017, 2018 came and I made a goal for myself that I was going to finish, have a license and be able to drive by the end of 2018. I really believed that goal, but I did nothing about it until I suddenly realized my theory test will expire at the end of this year. I got back in touch with my driving instructor that I had lessons with 2 years ago, 2 years previously. He had left the AA, but he was doing lessons through another company. So I was quite happy because I really got on with him. I only had a window of about 2 months until my certificate expired. So I booked my practical driving test and I told him that I did it. And he was quite calm about it. He said, well, it is short notice and we will have to work really hard on at least 2 lessons a week, 2 hours each lesson, but it can be done. So I was a little bit more like at ease and he was confident in me. It was brilliant. I was feeling really confident the more I did. My biggest problem was maneuvers and I just didn't feel confident doing any of them, like bay park, parallel park, reverse park, park on the right, all of these, you know, they were just, I was fine doing them, but inside of me, I just wasn't confident doing them, which then made me feel even more apprehensive about actually doing them. So the day of my test came and I was just a bag of nerves. Honestly, I just couldn't have been any more nervous than I was. I went for a 2-hour lesson before my test on the same day, and it was probably my best lesson yet. Feeling confident, nervous but confident. Got into the test center. I had chosen to have my instructor with me in the car during the test, which is not something I knew could be done, but someone alerted me to that. So if you're doing your test, you can have your instructor with you in the back of the car, which for me was great because I wanted to be able to talk to him about the test afterwards, and I knew I wasn't going to remember what happened. And I also felt like if there's a familiar presence in the back of the car, then I'll feel a little bit more comfortable and just like knowing that someone there I know. So then the instructor, the examiner called my name. We got outside of the center. The first thing he asked me to do was to read a number plate in the distance to test my eyesight. And I picked the wrong number plate. He asked me to read one on the right. I read one in one of the parked cars, and then I read one. Anyway, I got the numbers right, which is what he was looking for, but I was so nervous that I just got that part wrong, and I thought, great, we're off to such a good start. So then we got into the car. I remember it was raining and I had to put like the demister on and remember all these things. So the test itself was fine. It was probably one of my best drives again. I was on a real high. I was doing lots of things right, and the instructor was really patient. During your test, the examiner will ask you to pull up on the left several times just to check how you pull out, you know, if you look at cars that are coming, all those things. So I had done a couple of them already, so doing the test, and I was doing it again. Pulled up on the left. It was on a hill, on a residential area with parked cars. So I pulled up, and then he said, okay, now you can move away again. It was just, you know, that pull up on the left, now move away. And before I could move away, there was a car that was coming towards me, and this car was coming into the space right in front of me. There was so much space on that road, and that car wanted to go there. It threw me completely. I wasn't expecting it. And then the examiner said, now you're gonna have to reverse and then pull out from in front of the parked car, which in itself was all fine. But when your mind is set on what you're going to do and all of a sudden there's a change of circumstances, it can take you by surprise. And it did, and it kind of threw me completely. So put my car in reverse gear, went down and reversed a little bit, went to pull away, and the car wouldn't go. I tried 5 times to pull out and the car wouldn't go, until I realized that my car was still in reverse gear. I just knew I'd failed my test at that point, because it's too many times to try without noticing that your car is in reverse. So I was really disappointed, really gutted. I had never done anything like that. Even during my practice, I'd never tried to pull out with the car in reverse gear. And it was simply nerves and just being in a situation that I was completely thrown out of what I thought I was supposed to be doing. Got back to the test center and he told me, unfortunately, you have failed your driving test. And I just wanted to hold back the tears so much, but I knew I had failed already. So that was the only reason why I failed. I had a couple of minors. I think it was like hesitation, pulling out of roundabouts, but that was it. And a huge thing that I forgot to mention was the fact that my theory test certificate expired on the day of that test. So by failing that test, it meant that I had to redo my theory test. So I was devastated. I was extra gutted. I was so disappointed in myself. That failure was exactly what I feared when I was avoiding booking my driving test here in the UK, and it happened. So I was really, really gutted. But then I kind of clung on to the fact that I made a promise to myself that I was going to be driving by the end of 2018. So I picked myself up, booked another theory test to do. My test was two days after the day I booked, so I didn't really give myself much time to study for my theory test, but I thought, you know what? I'm gonna spend a whole day studying and do the test, and hopefully that'll be good enough. I got another app which I highly, highly, highly recommend. I'll leave the app name linked here. It was brilliant for studying. I totally recommend it, and I passed my theory test again. Then I had my certificate. I was able to then book my driving test again, my practical test again, but there were no dates. No dates until gone February, March, and this was end of December. So then there was Christmas break in between where you couldn't get an appointment, and it was just chaos and everything was against me, but I was so determined. Someone on Instagram told me you can get cancellation appointments, and basically I just went on the DVLA website every few hours, every day, until I found a cancellation appointment before Christmas that allowed me to do my test. And then I went on to do that test a lot calmer because, you know, the worst case scenario had already happened for me. I had already failed my test. So the worst that could happen is I failed the test again. There was no pressure because I hadn't told anyone. Only my husband knew I was doing the test and my instructor. As the previous one, everyone knew I was doing. So I think the pressure of that got to me as well. It was an okay drive. So my first test, I drove much better, but I had that unfortunate situation. On my second test, I did an okay drive. I could have done better in lots of places, but I did enough to pass. And I passed it, which I was really, really happy about. So I passed it second time. A few weeks later, my last license arrived through the post, and that is the story of how I got a UK driving license. It wasn't a smooth road for me. It was pretty bumpy. I had lots of problems in the middle, but I feel like it's worth sharing because it happens for some people. Some people it's not straightforward, and the amount of people that reached out to me when I shared on Instagram about my driving experience, the amount of people that said I didn't pass first time, I passed second time, third time, fourth time, fifth time, and it just made me feel like I wasn't a failure because I failed my test first time, because it happens to a lot of people. Sometimes it's down to circumstances, nerves, it's, you know, just a day that you're not feeling great. If you're watching this video and you have failed your driving test and you're feeling discouraged, just remember it happens to so many people. And the biggest thing that I want to pass on from this video is I want to encourage you who are thinking about booking your driving test to go ahead and do it. The first step is the most important one. So do whatever it is that gets you on that first step. It's either going to be calling an instructor or booking your theory test, whatever it is you want to do. Download an app to study for your theory test. Just get it started, because your life will be so much easier if you have your license and you're able to drive. I mean, the amount of times now that I've been able to do stuff without inconveniencing anyone or getting taxis everywhere or worrying about how I'm going to get from A to B, it's just been so much easier. And I just can't believe that I deprived myself of this independence for 9 years. So I'd hate for any of you out there to do that to yourselves. If you have the opportunity, start now. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to share with your friends if they're learning to drive. Comment below and tell me about your experience in getting a UK driving license. If you've done your test recently, if it wasn't recently, just share your experience and tell us how it went for you. Make sure you subscribe to my channel if you're new so you can keep up with my videos. I post 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, and I will see you very soon. Bye!